This year's Olympics is full of comeback stories, and Mikaela Shiffrin is one of the biggest. The legendary skier has won more World Cup races than anyone else in history, but a devastating crash in 2024 could have ended her career. Welcome back to Olympic Winter is Coming, the series where I'm telling you everything you need to know ahead of this year's games in February. Mikaela Shiffrin is one of the biggest names in alpine skiing. When she won her first Olympic gold medal at the 2014 Games, she became the youngest skier in history, man or woman, to actually take home gold in slalom. She's made 3 total Olympic appearances with 2 gold medals and 1 silver to her name. But there was a real possibility she would miss out on the 2026 Games. Back in November of 2024, Mikaela had a devastating crash while competing in giant slalom. She knows she crashed into a gate, and it's suspected that either the impact of the crash itself or that a piece of the gate that she crashed into came loose. But whatever the cause, the result was essentially a stab wound. Mikaela came away from that crash with a 5-centimeter deep puncture wound in her stomach, and that puncture was just a millimeter shy of her colon. This was the second injury that she had suffered in a short period of time. Back in January of 2024, she had a crash that caused a knee injury and took her out of the game for 2 months. Now, with just over a year to the next Olympic Games, she had a much more serious injury to contend with. She said that she experienced intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, and symptoms of PTSD. But with the help of her support system, Mikaela recovered not only physically, but also mentally. And after that recovery, there was an even bigger problem. The way the World Cup system works, when you're injured, you can freeze your points under an injury status. But the second you return to competition, you lose that injury status and your points unfreeze. The point system not only ranks you, but it affects your bib number and your starting position for future races. And because of Mikaela's injuries, when she returned, she was only competing in slalom. And all of that came together to mean that she was close to falling out of the top 30 in the point standings. And had she fallen out of that ranking, it would have put her at a severe disadvantage when trying to qualify for this year's Olympic Games. So Mikaela not only needed to be competing pretty regularly, she had to be doing so well and earning those World Cup points. But Mikaela wasn't dubbed the greatest alpine ski racer in history for no reason. Not only did she return, she did so with full force. And as she continued competing and earning those World Cup points, she not only regained ground in the standings, she also qualified for the 2026 Olympic Games, and up until recently was on a pretty intense win streak. But regardless of that win streak ending, there's no denying that Mikaela comes into these games with an incredible hunger and a possibility of taking home another gold medal. And one of my favorite pieces of wisdom that she's given in her press tour as she heads into these Olympics is that you're never fully prepared for something until the day after it happens. And I think when we look at her recovery, her hunger, and her refusal to give up on this sport, that piece of advice is something that you can take into your regular life. Because if Mikaela had waited until she felt 100% ready, she would have missed her chance to return to this sport that she is absolutely still incredibly dominant in. So as we head into the Winter Olympics, be sure to keep an eye on both Mikaela Shiffrin and Lindsey Vonn, 2 of the biggest comeback stories of this Olympic cycle, both competing for Team USA. For more stories like this and coverage of the rest of the Winter Games, be sure to follow along for the rest of Olympic Winter is Coming.